Welcome to Strip Panel Naked. I'm Haas, and I'm going to show you some of the great stuff lurking in the panels of some of the best comics. David Ajar's work on Hawkeye is interesting for a huge number of reasons, but one that always stands out to me is his panel density. What I mean by this is the often quite large amount of panels that Ajar packs into a single page and the way that he assembles them. We experience progress in comics in between the panels. In the gutters here is the difference between panel 1 and panel 2, and it's up to an artist to decide how big that difference is. If it's a time jump, a location jump, or whatever, they have the option to make it as small or as huge a leap as they want. And what Ajar often does is focus on the minutiae of action. He does this by breaking down sequences into many panels that are often taking place over a very short period of time. This creates not just a sense of pace, but also a level of importance, because every time an artist draws a panel, there should be a reason for what they're showing us. So by drawing a lot of panels, Ajar is saying to us that all of this is important. So here's a page from issue 2 which features 24 panels. And I wanted to use this page because it's very simple in content. All it looks like on the surface is a page about two people having a phone conversation, made up entirely of drawings of faces. And often you get situations like this to advance plot. Characters talking is the simplest and most efficient option in a lot of cases of getting exposition across to an audience. It's not always the best option though. Saying that, storytellers who know what they're doing can often elevate a scene like this, and this is what Ajar does with this page. Oddly, he does that by taking the simplest method available. In cinema, it's called the shot, reverse shot. This is a shot of character A, and then you cut to a shot of character B, and you just keep switching between those two shots as they talk to each other. It's often hailed in cinema as a lazy way of storytelling, and here Ajar does essentially 24 panels of it. So why does it work? It works because Ajar uses so many panels. By doing so, he doesn't make this a page about two people having a conversation. If it was just about that, you wouldn't need 24 panels. What he shows you is their relationship and their dynamic in this story, in this single page. By using shot, reverse shot, Ajar only allows you to focus on the faces of the two characters, Clint and Kate. By laying it out in so many panels, he forces you to notice the small movements and changes. This isn't an artist reproducing the same drawing numerous times and then just letting the letterer write new content over the top. This is a clever design. I've removed the wording from the bubbles for this sequence because the faces tell the whole story. If we read it without words, we can see how Ajar's panel density really comes into effect. He manages to tell you an entire story of conversation in the visuals. You can see here from the changes in reactions how the conversation progresses what the emotional through line is. Now, the other thing Ajar does with these panels is slowly close in on the focus and then pull back out. But because of the amount of panels, he's able to do that with much more subtlety than you could get with, say, a more standard 6 or 9 panel grid. It's much less obvious and in your face, but you can feel it happening. So you can see how we pull into Clint's face and focus on his eyes, and this is the run of 3 panels right in the center of the page. His eyes are closed and looking down. This is the real purpose of the phone conversation, and when you add the words back in, you can see it really is the heart of their dialogue. Then, for the second half of the conversation, Ajar pulls back out again, back to similar framing at the top of the page, once Clint has got through the tougher part of his phone call. This is very simple and effective storytelling. You're learning a lot just by these placements. When you place 2 images next to each other, you ask your audience to consider those 2 images as part of one whole story or meaning. Here, Ajar exploits that with his panel density. He frames Clint smaller in each panel, and especially at the beginning of the conversation, he has a lot of space around him compared to Kate, who is mostly just these headshots. Only at the end of the conversation does Ajar really show us more of her. And so what do we have to infer from this? To see more of Kate and less of Clint back to back, it creates a dominating effect for Kate and a weakening of Clint. He takes up less space than Kate and therefore feels less powerful in this page, which is perfect thematically, because Clint is asking for help and in a way is offering himself to Kate. But where the panel density comes in is how Ajar is able to play around with that effect a lot throughout the conversation, as we see more of Kate towards the end, and actually Ajar puts both Kate and Clint on equal ground by the end of the conversation, until the final Kate panel here, when she becomes huddled up in this larger shot. This implies a level of guardedness for Kate. So by applying a heavy panel density, Ajar selects what to show us, showing us this powerful character for 22 panels, before revealing that she's actually almost childlike, in her bedroom with her posters on the wall and in her pajamas. This reveal only has this effect because of how many panels Ajar is using and how he establishes Kate's dominance in the conversation repeatedly. We feel like Clint is weaker, but actually we find out these two are very similar. But by having so many panels, Ajar is asking you to make and establish connections between these two images constantly. He's asking you every new panel to reevaluate what you are seeing, which brings up the other great thing Ajar does with panel density on this page. He creates a mirroring, both diagonally and horizontally. Sure, you can do this with less panels, but by having so many, Ajar creates an overall page mirroring and intersection, but also mini groups of symmetry. So here's the obvious first bit, diagonally straight across the page. The paneling takes you all the way down to the bottom left here, then kicks you out bottom right. Why are we seeing this? Because these two people are the same. They're two sides of the same coin. They're both Hawkeyes, they both have thematically a lot of similarities, and they really do need each other. Look how Ajar draws them both facing inwards towards the dialogue going on. They need this. The These subtle shadow lines Aja adds to the top of the page here pull you in, as does this curve on the shadow here next to Kate. It wraps up these characters in this page and everything that's going on, quite literally, between them. This isn't just a page of comic book storytelling, it's a masterful use of space. But you also create this flipped mirroring horizontally, all based around these 3 panels here that we talked about earlier. And this isn't just Aja being fancy and flashy for no reason. This conversation is in 3 main parts. Part 1 is here. This is Clint trying to take the lead and be assertive. He's got something he needs to ask. So Aja frames them alongside this large Clint panel to the left. He's telling us, the reader, that this is for Clint. Part 2 is the 3 panels here we've discussed. This is the major anchoring point. Now that Clint has asked Kate, it becomes part 3, which is about Kate's strength and acceptance. Aja frames these 9 panels alongside Kate, so we understand that now this is about her. And these sections really do feel tied to each of these characters. They're really anchored by their presence next to the panels. By doing this, Aja is giving each of these bits of conversation a perspective that you wouldn't get without them. And you'd really struggle to do that without so many panels. The packed nature of this 9-panel grid here alongside the much larger Kate panel is making a bold statement. Similarly, if you remove this large panel and you just had the 9-panel grid here, it loses that perspective. It just becomes a conversation between 2 people. So while this may seem on first glance to be a single page about 2 people having a phone conversation, it's actually really so much more about who these people are and their relationship with each other. Reading this page without dialogue is just as fascinating and insightful as it is with dialogue. You learn everything you need to know about these characters' relationship and actually who they are, what they're like, and how they interact with each other all through this one page, and only really because David Aja chooses to use this very large amount of panels. Ultimately, this is an example of how you can subvert the tradition to utilize the medium to your advantage. Hidden amongst this simplicity is stunning storytelling and genius comics work. As Richard Bach said, the simplest things are often the truest. Thanks for watching.